You taught me what love isn't.
For 7 years, my marriage was a Swiss watch. Looked flawless on the outside, but inside, all gears and lies grinding against each other until something had to break. I'm Grant Wallace, 38 years old, industrial designer by trade, and apparently the biggest fool in suburban Chicago. At least that's what I thought until I discovered just how much of a genius I could be when properly motivated. My wife Erica had this annual tradition. Every September, she'd disappear for a long weekend on what she called her girls' retreat to some spa in Wisconsin. She'd return Sunday night glowing like she'd found the fountain of youth, full of new energy and surprisingly creative bedroom suggestions that would make a sailor blush. "Grant, honey," she'd purr, sliding into bed with that carnivory smile I used to find irresistible. I learned some amazing new techniques at the wellness workshop. This year was different. This year, Erica came back from her retreat like she'd been possessed by some sort of sexual demon. The woman who usually treated closeness like a quarterly business review suddenly wanted to recreate scenes from movies I was pretty sure they didn't show at wellness retreats. "Where exactly did you learn this?" I asked one particularly athletic Tuesday evening, trying to catch my breath. "Oh, the other girls were sharing stories," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Maddie knows all sorts of things." Maddie, Erica's work friend, a 35-year-old gossip machine who treated other people's business like her personal entertainment network. If Maddie was involved, I should have known something was fishy. But I was riding high on what felt like a second honeymoon. My confidence soared. I started working out more, bought better clothes, even got a haircut that didn't look like it came from a discount chain. For the first time in years, I felt like the man Erica had married instead of the comfortable piece of furniture I'd become. That confidence made me bold. Maybe too bold. It was a Thursday evening in October. Erica was in the shower singing some pop song off key when I noticed her phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a text from Maddie, and the preview made my blood freeze. "Can't wait to hear about your next session with PJ. Much more exciting than your boring husband, right?" My hands shook as I picked up the phone. The passcode, our anniversary date, how perfectly ironic, let me into a world I never wanted to see. Text after text to Maddie, detailing encounters that made my stomach turn. Not because of their graphic nature, but because of how casually my wife discussed her contempt for me. "Gigi is so clueless. Thinks his new confidence is actually attractive. Meanwhile, PJ does that thing with his tongue that makes me forget my own name. Poor Grant thinks he's finally satisfying me. If only he knew I'm just practicing what PJ teaches me. It's like having a very enthusiastic crash test dummy." I screenshotted everything, my designer's eye automatically organizing the evidence into a neat digital folder. 7 years of marriage, and I'd become a case study in humiliation. The shower was still running. Erica's voice echoed off the bathroom tiles, completely oblivious to the fact that her entire world was about to collapse. I should have put the phone back, should have confronted her properly, should have done a lot of things differently. Instead, I kept reading. PJ turned out to be Paul Jensen, Erica's boss at the marketing firm where she worked. Married, father of 2, drives a BMW that costs more than my annual salary. The kind of man who wears $1,000 suits and thinks everyone else exists for his entertainment. The shower stopped. I was still holding her phone when Erica walked out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her like armor that wouldn't protect her from what was coming. "Grant, why do you have my phone?" Her voice was steady, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She knew. In that instant, she knew that her carefully constructed lie had crumbled. "Interesting reading material," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Maddie's quite the correspondent. Very detailed in her questions about your extracurricular activities." Erica's face went white, then red, then white again. She sat down hard on the bed, the towel clutched against her chest, like it could somehow shield her from the truth. "Grant, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been using me as practice for your real relationship. How you've been laughing about it with your friend. Or maybe you want to explain who PJ is, and why he's apparently so much better at everything than your crash test dummy husband." The words came out sharper than I intended, each one designed to cut. Erica flinched with every sentence. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "Really? Because I think my wife has been having an affair with her boss for at least a year, possibly longer. I think she's been coming home from her little rendezvous and using me to practice what she learns. And I think she's been sharing every humiliating detail with her gossip buddy Maddie. Did I miss anything? Erica started crying then, big dramatic sobs that might have moved me a month ago. Now they just seemed like another performance. Please don't ruin everything, she begged. We can work this out. I'll end it with Paul. We can go to counseling. Grant, please, I love you. I stood up, still holding her phone. You already ruined everything, Erica. I'm just the last one to know about it. I walked to the bedroom door, then turned back. She looked small and broken on the bed, mascara running down her cheeks, the perfect image of a woman who'd lost everything. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. By the way, I said, if you faint, do I get to keep your bonus this year? Because I'm thinking I'm going to need a good lawyer. I left her there, grabbed my keys, and walked out into the October night. My phone was already in my hand, scrolling to Vince's number. Vince Martinez, my best friend since college, ex-cop turned security consultant, the kind of guy who knew how to find things people wanted to keep hidden. The phone rang twice before his gravelly voice answered. Grant, it's almost midnight, man. Everything okay? You up for some private investigator work? I asked, getting into my car. I want to know everything about my wife's affair, and I mean everything. There was a pause, then a low whistle. Crap, buddy, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm up for it. You want to meet tonight? Tomorrow morning, your office. And Vince, this isn't about saving my marriage. This is about making sure she loses everything, just like I did. I hung up and sat in my driveway for a long moment, looking at the house I'd called home for 7 years. The lights were still on in the bedroom. Erica was probably planning her next move, figuring out how to spin this, how to make me the villain in her story. She had no idea what was coming. Vince's office looked like something out of a 1970s detective movie, all wood paneling and Venetian blinds with a coffee maker that probably qualified as a historical artifact. But Vince himself was pure 21st century efficiency, his computer setup more sophisticated than most tech companies. So, he said, settling into his chair with a cup of coffee that could strip paint, tell me about this Paul Jensen. I'd spent the sleepless night compiling everything I knew, which wasn't much. PJ to his friends, mid-40s, married, 2 kids, drives a silver BMW 7 Series, works at Hartwell Marketing downtown, where he's apparently Erica's boss and personal trainer. Vince's fingers flew over the keyboard. Paul James Jensen, 44, lives in Winnetka. Wife is Catherine, works part-time as a real estate agent. Kids are 16 and 13. Clean driving record, no criminal history, but... He paused, scrolling through something on his screen. Interesting. What? Your boy PJ has some expensive habits. Credit report shows regular cash advances, payments to offshore gambling sites, and he's been refinancing his house every 2 years. Either he's really bad with money or he's got some serious debts. This was better than I'd hoped. Can you find out more? Give me a couple of days. But Grant, what exactly are you planning here? Because if you're thinking about doing something stupid, nothing illegal, I said. I just want them to face some consequences for what they've done. Real consequences. That evening, I put on my best performance as the oblivious husband. Erica had clearly spent the day crafting her strategy. She was extra attentive, cooking my favorite dinner, wearing the dress she knew I liked. Honey, she said over the salmon she'd perfectly prepared, I was thinking we should plan a vacation, just the 2 of us. Maybe that trip to Italy we always talked about. Sounds expensive, I said, taking another bite. Can we afford it with your work situation? Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. My work situation? Well, dating your boss can't be great for job security. What happens when his wife finds out, or HR? I imagine these things get messy. Erica set down her fork, her carefully constructed composure cracking. Grant, we need to talk about this rationally. Rationally? Okay, let's be rational. You've been cheating on me for over a year. You've been using our marriage bed to practice techniques you learn with another man. You've been sharing intimate details of our relationship with your friend for her entertainment. Rationally speaking, what part of that should I be okay with? She started crying again, but this time it felt calculated. I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Grant. It doesn't mean our whole marriage is worthless. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This is a lifestyle choice. My phone buzzed. Text from Vince. Girls' night tonight. Want to see what that really looks like? I looked at my wife, tears streaming down her face, and felt absolutely nothing. You know what? You're right. We should talk about this rationally. But first, I think I'll go out for a drink. Clear my head. Grant, please don't Don't what? Don't leave you alone to text PJ about how your husband is being unreasonable? Don't worry. I'm sure he'll have some advice for handling difficult spouses. I met Vince at a coffee shop 6 blocks from the Marriott downtown. He'd already been watching for an hour when I arrived. "They're in room 1247, he said, handing me a pair of binoculars. "Been there since 7:30. Your wife told the desk clerk she was meeting her book club." "Book club," I repeated. "That's creative." Gets better. I followed Jensen from his office. He stopped at a liquor store, bought champagne and strawberries. Real romantic for a book discussion. We waited in Vince's car, watching the hotel entrance. At 10:15, they emerged together. Erica's hair messed up despite her obvious attempts to fix it. PJ's shirt wrinkled in a way that told the whole story. "You want to confront them?" Vince asked. "Not yet. Follow him." PJ drove to a dive bar called Mickey's on the south side, the kind of place that looked like it specialized in bad decisions and worse whiskey. We watched him walk in like he owned the place. "Interesting choice for a Winnetka executive," Vince observed. Inside, Mickey's was exactly what it looked like from the outside. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and the kind of clientele that paid in cash and minded their own business. PJ was at the bar talking to a bartender who looked like he'd seen everything twice. I approached the bar, ordered a beer, and listened. "Need another extension on the 15 grand, PJ was saying. "Just until the end of the month." "That's what you said last month," the bartender replied. "Tony's getting impatient." "Tell Tony I'm good for it. I always pay." "Eventually." "But eventually ain't paying the interest, is it?" I finished my beer and left a 20 on the bar. As I walked past PJ, I made sure to bump his shoulder just hard enough to slosh his drink. "Sorry about that," I said, meeting his eyes for the first time. He was handsome in a generic way, the kind of man who looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne advertisement. "Clumsy of me." "No problem," he said, but something in his expression suggested he was studying my face, trying to place me. Outside, Vince was waiting with a satisfied grin. "Get what you needed?" "PJ owes $15,000 to someone named Tony, and from the sound of it, Tony's not the patient type. Plus, I got a good look at the man who's been screwing my wife. And, honestly, I expected more. If you're going to destroy your marriage, at least do it for someone impressive." The next morning, Erica was gone before I woke up, leaving only a note saying she had an early meeting. I was drinking coffee and reading the news when my phone rang. "Grant, this is Maddie." Erica's friend sounded nervous, which was unusual for someone who normally oozed confidence. "We need to talk." "Do we?" "Look, I know you found out about Erica and Paul. She's devastated. But if you think you can use what you know to hurt her, you're wrong. I have information too, and I'm not afraid to use it." I almost laughed. "What kind of information, Maddie?" "I know about your little investigation, following them around, digging into Paul's business. That's stalking, Grant. Maltreatment. Erica could get a restraining order." "Interesting theory. Tell me, what exactly do you think I've been doing?" "I know you hired someone to follow them. I know you've been to that bar where Paul goes. You think you're so smart, but you're just a sad, angry man who can't accept that his wife found someone better." I put the phone on speaker and opened my voice recording app. "So you're saying you know about Paul's gambling problem? About the money he owes? About how he's been using his position at work to manipulate my wife into an affair? I'm saying you need to back off before you get hurt." "By who? Tony? The guy PJ owes 15 grand to? Because from what I heard, Tony's more interested in getting his money than protecting Paul's reputation." There was a long pause. "You don't know what you're dealing with." "I know exactly what I'm dealing with, Maddie. A cheating wife, her dirtbag boss, and a friend who's been encouraging the whole thing for her own entertainment. The question is, do you know what you're dealing with?" I hung up and saved the recording. Maddie had just confirmed everything I suspected and given me ammunition I hadn't even asked for. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop following my boss, or you'll regret it." I showed the message to Vince when he called an hour later. "PJ's got a driver," he said. "Big guy, ex-military, probably doubles as security. Name's Rick Kowalski. Looks like they know we're watching." "Good," I said. "Let them sweat a little." That afternoon, I was driving home from work when I noticed the black Escalade in my rearview mirror. It had been there for 6 blocks, always 2 cars back, matching my speed perfectly. I turned left at the next intersection. The Escalade turned left. I turned right at the following block. The Escalade turned right. Time to see what Rick Kowalski was made of. I knew these streets like an architect knows blueprints. I'd been designing traffic flow systems for the city planning department for 3 years before going private. Every construction zone, every shortcut, every dead end was mapped in my head. I led the Escalade through downtown, taking seemingly random turns that were actually a carefully planned route. Left on Madison, right on State, left again into the maze of one-way streets around the financial district. The Escalade stayed with me, but I could see the driver getting frustrated, having to make increasingly aggressive moves to keep up. Then I turned onto Lower Wacker, the underground street that runs beneath downtown Chicago. Most tourists don't even know it exists, but it's perfect for what I had in mind. I accelerated, putting some distance between us, then took the ramp up to Upper Wacker. The Escalade followed, but now I had the advantage. I knew where the construction zone was. The city was replacing a section of the upper level, leaving only one lane open with concrete barriers on both sides. I timed it perfectly, slipping through just as the light turned yellow. The Escalade tried to follow, but a cement truck was coming through the intersection. Rick had to slam on his brakes, trapped behind the barriers with no way to turn around. I pulled over 3 blocks later, hands shaking from adrenaline, and called Vince. "They just tried to intimidate me with a car chase," I said. "You okay?" "Better than okay. I'm starting to enjoy this." "Grant, be careful. These guys are playing for real money. This isn't just about your marriage anymore." He was right, but I was past caring. PJ and Erica wanted to play games? Fine, let's play. Saturday morning, I woke up with a plan that would have made Machiavelli proud. If PJ and Erica wanted to keep their affair secret, I was going to make secrecy impossible. But first, I needed to set the stage. "Honey," I said to Erica over breakfast, using the tone I'd perfected over 7 years of marriage, "I was thinking we should have people over. It's been too long since we entertained." Erica nearly choked on her coffee. "Entertained? Grant, this isn't really the time." "Nonsense. I think a neighborhood barbecue would be perfect. Get everyone together, show them what a strong couple we are. You could invite people from work. I'd love to meet your boss." The color drained from her face. "Paul's very busy. I don't think—" "Oh, I insist. After all, he's been such an important part of your life lately. It would be rude not to include him." I spent the morning calling neighbors, colleagues, friends we hadn't seen in months. "Erica and I are working through some things," I told them, "and we thought a party would be a great way to reconnect with everyone who matters to us." By noon, I had 37 confirmed guests for the following Saturday. Erica spent the week in a state of barely controlled panic, making excuses for why Paul couldn't come, why maybe we should postpone, why perhaps a smaller gathering would be better. "Don't be silly," I said each time. I already bought the steaks. Besides, I have a surprise planned, something I think everyone will really enjoy. The morning of the party, Vince arrived early to help set up. Hidden in his equipment bag was a small projector and a laptop loaded with very specific files. "You sure about this?" he asked, testing the connection to my outdoor screen, the same screen where Erica and I usually watched movies on summer evenings. "They wanted to make a fool of me in private," I said, arranging chairs on the patio. "Seems only fair to return the favor in public." Guests started arriving at 2. Neighbors, co-workers, Erica's friends from her yoga class, my old college buddies. The kind of crowd that would ensure word of whatever happened here spread through our entire social circle within hours. Erica was a nervous wreck, but she was too good at playing the perfect hostess to let it show. She smiled, she laughed, she made small talk, all while watching the driveway like a condemned prisoner watching the gallows. At 3:30, a silver BMW pulled up. Paul Jensen stepped out looking like he owned the world, followed by a woman who must have been his wife, Catherine. Blonde, elegant, wearing the kind of casual outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Their teenage son trailed behind, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Grant." PJ approached with his hand extended and a politician's smile. "So great to finally meet you. Erica talks about you constantly." "I bet she does," I thought, shaking his hand and noting the firm grip, the expensive watch, the way his eyes swept the crowd like he was evaluating potential business contacts. "Paul, I've heard so much about you too. Erica says you've been a real mentor to her, teaching her all sorts of new techniques." His smile flickered for just a second. "Well, I try to help all my employees reach their full potential." "I'm sure you do. And Catherine, what a pleasure. I hope you don't mind me stealing your husband's attention occasionally. He and Erica have been spending so much time together lately on special projects." Katherine Jensen looked like the kind of woman who'd perfected the art of reading between lines. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were calculating. "Special projects?" she said. "Oh yes, lots of late nights, weekend retreats, very hands-on work. Erica comes home exhausted, but so satisfied with what they've accomplished together." I watched PJ's face turn red, while his wife's expression grew increasingly cold. The party continued, everyone eating, drinking, laughing, completely unaware of the drama unfolding. I played the perfect host, making sure everyone had food and drinks, keeping conversations flowing, all while maneuvering key people into position. At 5 o'clock, I tapped a knife against my beer bottle to get everyone's attention. "If I could have everyone gather around," I called out. "I have a little presentation to share, something I think you'll all find very interesting." Erica's face went white. She started moving toward me, but Vince smoothly intercepted her, engaging her in conversation about his security business. "As most of you know," I continued, "Erica and I have been married for 7 wonderful years, and recently, I discovered some things about my wife that I think really showcase who she is as a person." The crowd settled in, expecting a sweet anniversary tribute. Erica was shaking her head frantically, but she couldn't make a scene without drawing more attention. "So I put together a little slideshow," I said, as Vince fired up the projector. "Some candid moments that really capture the essence of our relationship." The first image appeared on the screen, a screenshot of Erica's text to Maddie about PJ being much more exciting than her boring husband. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, whispers, the sound of Katherine Jensen's wineglass hitting the patio stones. "Whoops," I said with theatrical surprise. "Wrong file. Sorry about that, everyone. Technical difficulties." But Vince was already loading the next screenshot, and the next, each one more damning than the last. Erica's own words condemning her in front of everyone who mattered in her life. "Grant, stop." Erica finally found her voice, but it was too late. Katherine Jensen was on her feet, her face a mask of fury. "Paul James Jensen, what the hell is this?" PJ looked like a man watching his life collapse in real time. "Katherine, I can explain." "Explain what? How you've been screwing your employee and letting her make fun of her husband? How you've been lying to me about your business trips and late nights?" The crowd was riveted now. Our suburban barbecue transformed into the kind of public spectacle that would be talked about for years. "Mrs. Jensen," I said calmly, "I think there's more you should know about your husband's recent activities." I nodded to Vince, who switched to the photos we'd taken outside Mickey's bar, showing PJ in deep conversation with Tony's representative. "Did you know Paul owes $15,000 to a loan shark? Or that he's been using company funds to cover his gambling debts?" Katherine Jensen slapped her husband so hard, the sound echoed off the patio walls. "You fool! You pathetic, lying fool!" The party erupted into chaos, neighbors pulling out phones to record, friends taking sides, Erica sobbing as her carefully constructed social life crumbled around her. Maddie tried to slip away, but I caught her arm. "Leaving so soon? I thought you'd want to stay for the finale. You're insane," she hissed. "This is cruel and vindictive and honest," I finished. "This is honest. For the first time in years, everyone here knows the truth about what's been happening." PJ grabbed my shoulder, his face twisted with rage. "You son of a witch! You've ruined everything!" "I didn't ruin anything," I said, shrugging off his grip. "I just stopped pretending your lies were the truth." The party broke up quickly after that, guests streaming away with enough gossip to fuel conversations for months. Katherine Jensen left with her son, promising divorce papers by Monday. PJ stood alone in my driveway, his perfect life scattered around him like broken glass. Erica found me cleaning up paper plates an hour later. "How could you do this to me?" she whispered. "Do what? Tell the truth? Show people who you really are?" "You humiliated me in front of everyone I know." I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but pity. "Erica, you humiliated yourself. I just made sure people could see it." She tried one last time, moving closer, using the voice that used to make me forget my own name. "Grant, we can fix this. We can move somewhere new, start over. I'll do anything. Anything except be faithful to your husband." That was a mistake, a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything. A year-long moment of weakness, very impressive stamina. She slapped me then, hard enough to leave a mark. "You're going to regret this, both of you. Paul has connections, resources. He won't let you destroy him. Paul's about to be unemployed and divorced. His connections won't return his calls, and his resources are about to belong to his ex-wife's lawyers. I handed her a paper plate with leftover potato salad. Here, you might want to get used to eating alone. That night, I sat on my patio with a beer, looking at the screen where I'd projected the end of my marriage. My phone had been buzzing all evening. Friends, neighbors, even strangers who'd heard about that party secondhand. Most of the messages were supportive. A few were shocked. One was from my sister Rachel. Holy crap, Grant, Mom's going to love this story. But the one that mattered came at midnight from an unknown number. You think you won, but this isn't over. Some games have consequences you can't imagine. I finished my beer and went inside. Let them threaten. Let them plot. I'd spent 7 years being the fool in someone else's story. Now it was my turn to write the ending. Monday morning brought lawyers, phone calls, and the kind of bureaucratic warfare that would make Sun Tzu weep. I'd spent Sunday researching divorce law, asset protection, and the fine art of legal revenge. My attorney, Margaret Chen, was a sharp-edged woman in her 50s who specialized in high-conflict divorces. She listened to my story with the expression of someone who'd heard it all before but still found new ways to be disappointed in human nature. Your wife's affair gives us significant leverage, she said, reviewing the screenshots I'd provided. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity can still impact asset division, especially when there's evidence of marital waste. Marital waste? Money spent on the affair, hotel rooms, gifts, trips. If we can prove Erica used marital funds to support her relationship with Jensen, we can argue for a larger share of the assets. While Margaret filed the initial paperwork, I met Vince at a downtown coffee shop to plan the next phase. PJ's in full damage control mode, he reported. Spent all weekend at his lawyer's office. Word is Catherine's going for blood. She wants the house, the cars, half his business interests, and full custody of the kids. What about work? That's where it gets interesting. Hartwell Marketing has a strict policy about employee relationships. Managers are required to disclose any romantic involvement with subordinates. PJ never filed the paperwork. I smiled. So he violated company policy. Gets better. I talked to a guy I know in corporate security. Turns out PJ's been using his company credit card for those hotel rooms. That's embezzlement. And Erica, she's about to have a very bad day. That afternoon, I implemented the first part of my financial strategy. Our joint accounts contained about $40,000, money I'd been saving for the Italy trip Erica had suggested. Instead of Italy, it was going to fund something much more satisfying. I transferred $30,000 into a trust fund for my nephew's college education, with my sister Rachel as the trustee. The remaining $10,000 went into a separate account for legal fees. All perfectly legal, all documented, all designed to ensure Erica couldn't touch the money she'd helped me save while she was screwing her boss. My phone rang as I was leaving the bank. Grant, what the hell did you do? Erica's voice was shrill with panic. The accounts are empty. Not empty. Redirected. I figured since you've been planning your exit strategy for a year, you wouldn't mind if I planned mine, too. You can't just steal our money. I didn't steal anything. I made sure it went to people who deserve it. Rachel's going to make sure Tommy gets a good education. Consider it my contribution to the next generation's moral development. I'll call my lawyer. This is illegal. Call anyone you want. Every transaction is documented and legitimate, unlike some people's recent activities. I hung up and drove to my next appointment, Hartwell Marketing's downtown offices. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place designed to intimidate clients and impress investors. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, where the executive offices overlooked the lake. I'm here to see Mr. Harrison, I told the receptionist, referring to Hartwell's CEO. It's about Paul Jensen. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Robert Harrison, a silver-haired man who looked like he'd stepped out of a boardroom magazine. Between us on his desk were printed copies of every screenshot, every photo, every piece of evidence I'd compiled. This is quite disturbing, he said, studying the images of PJ at Mickey's bar. You're certain about the gambling debts? My investigator confirmed it. $15,000 to a loan shark named Tony, plus whatever he owes to the offshore betting sites. Check his company credit card records. I think you'll find some interesting charges. Harrison's expression grew darker as he flipped through the evidence. The hotel charges alone are grounds for termination. Using company funds for personal affairs violates multiple policies. There's more. I have reason to believe PJ's been sharing confidential client information with his bookie to pay down his debts. Industrial espionage tends to make clients nervous. That was a bluff, but Harrison didn't know that. He made a note on his legal pad. Mr. Wallace, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll be conducting a full investigation. I hope so. Companies like Hartwell built their reputation on trust and integrity. It would be a shame if one employee's poor judgment damaged that reputation. I left the building feeling lighter than I had in months. By the time I got home, Vince was waiting with updates. PJ's been suspended pending investigation, he reported. Security escorted him out of the building an hour ago. Word is they've frozen his accounts and seized his company laptop. And Erica? Also suspended. Turns out when your boss gets fired for embezzlement and sexual maltreatment, it raises questions about everyone who worked closely with him. That evening, I cooked myself a steak dinner and opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. My phone buzzed with texts throughout the evening. Erica begging me to reconsider, threatening legal action, promising to change, then threatening me again. PJ's messages were more direct. You destroyed my life, you fool. I'll make you pay for this. At 10 o'clock, someone rang my doorbell. I looked through the peephole to see Maddie standing on my porch, looking like she'd been crying. Grant, please, we need to talk. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Talk about what, Maddie? You've gone too far. Erica's devastated. Paul's wife threw him out. His kids won't speak to him. He lost his job. You've ruined 2 families. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped enabling their lies. This isn't justice. It's revenge, and it's cruel. You want to talk about cruel? Let me tell you what's cruel. Spending a year encouraging my wife to cheat on me, helping her plan her lies, laughing about what a fool I was while she practiced her affair techniques on me. That's cruel, Maddie. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. I never meant for it to go this far. But you meant for it to go somewhere. You enjoyed the drama, the secrets, the feeling of being on the inside of someone else's destruction. Well, congratulations, you got a front row seat to the consequences. Erica needs help. She's not thinking clearly. If you're worried about her, call a therapist. Or better yet, call one of those other friends who helped her plan her double life. I'm sure they have lots of advice about dealing with consequences. I closed the door and went back to my wine. Through the window, I watched Maddie sit in her car for 10 minutes, probably trying to figure out her next move. My phone rang at midnight. Unknown number. You think you're so smart, a gravelly voice said, but you just made some powerful enemies. Is this Tony, the loan shark? Because I have to tell you, your boy PJ's not going to be able to pay you back anytime soon. There was a pause. You don't know what you're dealing with. I know exactly what I'm dealing with. A gambling dependent who got caught, a cheating wife who got exposed, and whatever sad collection of enablers and enforcers they have scraped together to try to intimidate me. Here's a newsflash. I'm not intimidated. You should be. Why? Because you might follow me around in an Escalade again? Because you might send me threatening text messages? I've got news for you. I've already lost everything that mattered to me. My marriage, my trust, my faith in the people I loved. What exactly do you think you can threaten me with that's worse than what's already happened? I hung up and turned off the phone. Let them plot, let them threaten, let them rage against the consequences of their own choices. Tomorrow, I was going to finish what they started. Tuesday brought rain and the kind of gray October sky that makes Chicago feel like the end of the world. I was drinking coffee and reading the financial section when I heard a commotion in my backyard. Through the kitchen window, I saw Erica and PJ trying to coax my dog Max out of his run. Max, a 70-pound golden retriever with more loyalty than sense, was having none of it. He was barking and backing away from them, his tail tucked between his legs. I grabbed my phone and started recording as I walked outside. Interesting morning for a dog walk, I called out. Especially since Max isn't your dog anymore, Erica. They spun around like kids caught stealing candy. Erica's hair was a mess, her makeup smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. PJ looked even worse, unshaven, wrinkled shirt, the kind of desperate expression you see on men who've lost everything and are about to lose more. Grant, please, Erica said. We just wanted to talk to you. So you decided to abduct my dog? That's your opening strategy? We weren't abducting him, PJ said. We were just breaking into my backyard and attempting to steal my pet. I'm pretty sure that's still illegal, even for unemployed marketing executives. I kept the phone recording as they stumbled through explanations. They just wanted to get my attention. They thought, if they took Max for a walk, we could all sit down and work this out like adults. They weren't thinking clearly. You're right, I said. You're not thinking clearly. But I am. I called the police, keeping the camera rolling as Erica broke down crying and PJ tried to convince me this was all a misunderstanding. Officers, I said when they arrived 20 minutes later, I'd like to report an attempted theft. These two individuals entered my property without permission and tried to take my dog. The younger officer looked skeptical. Sir, are you sure this isn't just a domestic dispute? I'm sure. That's my estranged wife and her boyfriend. They don't live here, they have no legal claim to the dog, and they entered my property without permission. I have the whole thing on video. Erica and PJ weren't arrested, but they were issued citations for trespassing and warned to stay away from my property. As the police car drove away, PJ turned to face me with pure hatred in his eyes. This isn't over, he said. You're right. It's not. That afternoon, Vince called with an update that made my day considerably brighter. Catherine Jensen filed for divorce this morning, he reported. She's claiming infidelity, financial misconduct, and emotional distress. Her lawyer's going for everything. The house, the cars, the boat, half his pension, and full custody of the kids. What about the gambling debts? That's the beautiful part. In Illinois, gambling debts aren't considered marital obligations. Catherine's not responsible for what PJ owes Tony, but she gets to keep all the assets PJ was using as collateral. So he's broke and in debt to a loan shark. Gets better. Hartwell's investigation found evidence of embezzlement going back 6 months. They're considering criminal charges. I was starting to feel like maybe there was justice in the world after all. That evening, I decided to celebrate with dinner at Romano's, an upscale Italian place downtown where Erica and I used to go for anniversaries. I was halfway through an excellent osso buco when PJ appeared at my table. He looked like he'd been drinking, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained, his face flushed with booze and desperation. "You son of a witch," he said, loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. "You destroyed my life." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied calmly, cutting another piece of veal. "I just stopped pretending your lies were the truth. My wife left me. My kids won't talk to me. I lost my job, my house, everything. Consequences are a witch, aren't they?" He grabbed my wrist, squeezing hard enough to leave marks. "You think this is funny? I think it's justice. You spent a year screwing my wife and laughing about what a fool I was. Now everyone knows what kind of man you really are." "I could eliminate you," he whispered. "In front of 50 witnesses? That would be the stupidest thing you've done all week. And that's saying something." I pulled my wrist free and stood up, leaving money on the table for the check. PJ followed me outside, shouting about how I'd ruined his life, how he was going to make me pay, how I had no idea what I was dealing with. A small crowd gathered to watch the show. Someone started recording with their phone. "Paul," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the cool evening air, "you're making a scene. These people are trying to enjoy their dinner, and you're out here having a public breakdown because you got caught cheating on your wife." "Shut up." He swung at me, a clumsy, drunken punch that I easily sidestepped. I could have walked away. Should have walked away. Instead, I decided PJ needed to learn one final lesson about consequences. I slapped him. Not a punch, not a fight. Just an open-handed slap across the face that sounded like a bang in the quiet street. PJ staggered backward, more from shock than force, his hand pressed to his cheek. "That's for my wife," I said. Then I grabbed his phone from his jacket pocket and threw it into the Chicago River 20 feet away. "And that's for the year of my life you stole." The crowd was definitely recording now. By tomorrow, the video would be all over social media. Cheating boss gets slapped by husband. PJ stood there for a long moment, looking like a man who just realized he'd reached the bottom and started digging. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the Chicago night. I drove home feeling better than I had in months. My phone was buzzing with calls and texts. Apparently, the video was already going viral. #cheating slapgate was trending on Twitter, but the best message came from my sister Rachel. "Just saw the video, Dad would have been proud." I was pouring myself a celebratory whiskey when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Erica standing on my porch, looking small and defeated. "Grant, please, just 5 minutes." I opened the door but didn't invite her in. 5 minutes. "I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed our marriage and humiliated you and made you feel like a fool. I know saying I'm sorry doesn't fix any of that." She was crying, but they seemed like real tears this time, not the calculated performance she'd given before. "But I loved you. I still love you. What happened with Paul was stupid and selfish and wrong, but it wasn't about not loving you." "Then what was it about?" "I don't know. Excitement, maybe. The thrill of something secret and forbidden. Feeling desired by someone powerful and important. and I wasn't powerful or important enough. You were safe, comfortable, you were home, and I guess I started taking home for granted. I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 7 years, the woman I'd planned to grow old with, and felt something I hadn't expected: pity. Erica, do you know what the saddest part of all this is? She shook her head. If you just talked to me, if you told me you were bored or restless or needed something different, we could have worked on it. We could have gone to counseling, taken that trip to Italy, figured out how to make you feel excited about us again. I know. Instead, you decided to have an affair with your boss and make me the punchline to your private joke. You chose the path that would hurt me the most. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Every day for a year, you came home and lied to my face. You used what you learned with him to manipulate me. You turned our marriage bed into a laboratory for your affair. She was sobbing now, the kind of broken crying that comes from finally understanding the full weight of what you've done. Is there any way we can fix this? I looked at her for a long moment, remembering the woman I'd fallen in love with, the woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with my heart and my future. No, I said finally, there isn't. I closed the door and went back to my whiskey. Through the window, I watched Erica sit in her car for 20 minutes, crying into her hands. When she finally drove away, I felt like I was watching the last chapter of my old life disappear into the Chicago night. Tomorrow, I would start writing a new one. The final act began on a Thursday night in late October. I was at Millennium Park with Vince, attending an outdoor concert that was part of the city's fall festival. The music was good, the crowd was friendly, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like a normal person instead of a man consumed by revenge. That's when I saw them. PJ and Erica were sitting at a table near the back of the crowd, their heads close together in intense conversation. Even from 50 yards away, I could see the desperation in their body language, the way PJ kept gesturing angrily, the way Erica kept shaking her head. Looks like the dream team is planning their comeback, Vince observed. Let them plan. What are they going to do? They're both unemployed, facing divorce proceedings, and about as popular as a plague outbreak. But I was wrong. They had one last card to play, and it was nastier than I'd expected. The next morning, I woke up to find 2 police officers at my door. Grant Wallace, we need to ask you some questions about an attack complaint. Attack complaint? Paul Jensen filed a report claiming you attacked him outside Romano's restaurant. He has witnesses and video evidence. I almost laughed. Officers, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I slapped the man once after he tried to punch me. The whole thing was recorded by multiple witnesses. We'll need you to come to the station to sort this out. 3 hours later, I was sitting in an interview room watching the same video that had made me an internet celebrity. The detective, a tired-looking woman named Sarah Martinez, seemed more amused than concerned. Mr. Wallace, this video shows you slapping Mr. Jensen and throwing his phone in the river. That's technically attack and destruction of property. It also shows him trying to punch me first. That's self-defense. The phone? Crime of passion. I was emotionally distraught after discovering my wife's affair with this man. Detective Martinez smiled. Mr. Wallace, between you and me, half the department has seen this video. Jensen comes off looking like a drunk fool, and you look like a man who's had enough. But technically, he has grounds for charges. So what happens now? Now you get a good lawyer and prepare for a lot of paperwork. Jensen's also claiming you've been stalking him, maltreating his family, and interfering with his business relationships. I exposed his affair and his gambling debts. That's not stalking, that's public service. Like I said, get a good lawyer. I called Margaret Chen from the police station parking lot. This is maltreatment, she said after I explained the situation. Jensen's trying to make you look like the aggressor to improve his position in his own divorce proceedings. We'll fight it, but it's going to be expensive and time-consuming. How expensive? $10,000 minimum. Maybe more if it goes to trial. I hung up and sat in my car, watching Chicago traffic crawl past, feeling the weight of the last month settling on my shoulders. PJ and Erica had managed to drag me down to their level, turning me into someone who solved problems with slaps and public humiliation. Maybe it was time to end this. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Drinks at Mickey's. Come alone. We need to talk. Mickey's bar looked exactly the same as it had the night I'd first followed PJ there. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and the kind of clientele that minded their own business. PJ was sitting in a corner booth, nursing what looked like his 4th or 5th whiskey. You came, he said as I approached. I'm curious what you think we have to talk about. A deal. A way for both of us to walk away from this mess with something left. I sat down across from him. Up close, he looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing a cheap suit that had seen better days. I'm listening. You drop the maltreatment charges, stop interfering with my divorce, and give me a written statement that I can use to get my job back. In exchange, I disappear, leave Chicago, leave Erica, start over somewhere else. Why would I help you? Because if you don't, I'm going to destroy you the same way you destroyed me. I still have friends in this city, people who owe me favors. I can make your life very difficult. I looked around the bar, noting the security cameras, the bartender who was clearly listening to our conversation, the other patrons who kept glancing our way. Paul, I said, you're broke, unemployed, facing criminal charges, and your own wife won't return your calls. What exactly do you think you can threaten me with? I know people, dangerous people. You mean Tony? The loan shark you owe 15 grand to? Because I have bad news. Tony's more interested in getting his money than helping you with your revenge fantasies. PJ's face flushed red. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won? I think I've survived. There's a difference. Erica still loves you, you know? She cries about you every night, talks about how she threw away the best thing in her life for a few months of excitement. If that's supposed to make me feel guilty, you're wasting your time. She wants to come home. She wants to fix things. And you're okay with that? PJ laughed bitterly. I never loved her, Grant. She was just a convenient distraction from my real problems. Good in bed, easy to manipulate, married to someone who wouldn't fight back. Except I did fight back. Yeah, you did. And now we're both sitting in this crap-hole bar, drinking cheap whiskey and pretending we haven't lost everything that mattered to us. I finished my drink and stood up. The difference is I lost things that were already gone. My marriage was over the day Erica decided to cheat. My trust was broken the day she lied to my face. You helped me see the truth, Paul. In a weird way, I should thank you. Where are you going? Home. To my house, my dog, my life. The life I'm going to rebuild without liars and cheaters and gamblers who think they can threaten their way out of consequences. I was halfway to the door when PJ called out, "This isn't over." I turned back to look at him one last time, a broken man in a cheap suit drinking alone in a dive bar, threatening people who'd already moved on with their lives. Yeah, I said, it is. The next morning brought the kind of October thunderstorm that makes Chicago feel like the edge of the world. I was drinking coffee and reading the news when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Erica and Maddie standing on my porch, both soaked from the rain. "Grant, please!" Erica called out. "We need to talk!" I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Make it quick! I have a conference call in 20 minutes. I want to come home," Erica said without preamble. "I want to fix our marriage. I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. Even give up Paul? It's over with Paul. It's been over since the party. Grant, I made a terrible mistake, but it doesn't have to destroy everything we built together." Maddie stepped forward. "Grant, she's been miserable without you. She knows she screwed up, but people make mistakes. That doesn't mean you throw away 7 years of marriage." I looked at both women, Erica with her desperate hope, Maddie with her calculated manipulation, and felt absolutely nothing. "Erica, do you remember what you said the night I found out about the affair?" "I said a lot of things. I was panicked, and you said I was a crash test dummy, that you were practicing what Paul taught you on your boring husband who was too stupid to know the difference." Her face crumpled. "I didn't mean it. I was just trying to sound sophisticated for Maddie. It was stupid girl talk. Stupid girl talk that revealed exactly what you thought of me and our marriage." Thunder crashed overhead, and the lights flickered. Through the storm, I could see neighbors watching from their windows, probably wondering what drama was playing out on Grant Wallace's porch now. "I love you," Erica said. "I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do love you. I want to spend the rest of my life making this up to you." "The rest of your life?" "Yes. Erica, you spent a year lying to me every single day. You turned our marriage bed into a laboratory for your affair. You laughed about my ignorance with your friends. You made me complicit in my own humiliation." "I know, and I'm sorry." "And now you want me to believe that you've suddenly realized the error of your ways? That you're ready to be faithful and honest and loving? Yes. I stepped out onto the porch, letting the rain soak through my shirt, and looked directly into her eyes. Here's what I believe, Erica. I believe you're scared. Your affair blew up in your face, you lost your job, your social circle has turned against you, and Paul turned out to be exactly the kind of man who abandons ship when things get difficult. That's not. I believe you're looking at me and seeing safety, security. The comfortable husband who will take you back and pretend this never happened because he's too weak or too desperate to demand better. Grant, please. But here's what you don't understand. I'm not the same man you married. I'm not the crash test dummy who was too stupid to see what was happening in his own house. The man you betrayed doesn't exist anymore. Lightning illuminated the street, and in that moment I saw everything clearly. The rain, the storm, the two women on my porch. It was all just weather. Background noise to the simple truth I was about to speak. I don't forgive you, Erica. I don't want to reconcile. I don't want to go to counseling or work things out or pretend we can rebuild what you destroyed. I want you to leave my house, leave my life, and never contact me again. You don't mean that. I mean every word. And Maddie? I turned to face Erica's friend, who'd been unusually quiet during this exchange. The next time you decide to help someone destroy their marriage, remember how this story ended. I went back inside and closed the door. Through the window, I watched them stand in the rain for several minutes. Erica crying, Maddie trying to convince her to try again. Finally, they got in Maddie's car and drove away. I poured myself another cup of coffee and called Margaret Chen. I want to accept Paul's plea deal on the attack charges, I told her. Grant, we can fight this. The video clearly shows, I don't want to fight anymore. I want to pay the fine, do the community service, and move on with my life. Are you sure? I'm sure. Some victories aren't worth the cost of winning them. That afternoon, the storm passed, leaving Chicago washed clean and gleaming in the October sun. I took Max for a long walk through the neighborhood, nodding to neighbors who waved, ignoring the ones who whispered. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Rachel. Saw the weather report, you surviving the storm? The storm's over, I texted back. Time to start rebuilding. 3 months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, reading the Sunday paper and enjoying the kind of peaceful morning I'd forgotten was possible. My divorce was final. The attack charges had been resolved with a small fine and 40 hours of community service, and I'd started dating a librarian named Susan, who thought my story was sad but not tragic. The newspaper's business section had a small item about Hartwell Marketing's new management structure following recent personnel changes. Paul Jensen's name was nowhere to be found. My phone buzzed with a text from Vince. Thought you'd want to know. PJ left town. Rumor is he's working at a car dealership in Phoenix. I typed back, good for him. Fresh starts are important. As I was leaving the coffee shop, I saw a familiar figure across the street. Erica was coming out of a temp agency, clutching a manila folder and looking like someone who'd learned that starting over was harder than it looked. For a moment, our eyes met through the Chicago traffic. She raised her hand in a tentative wave, and I could see the question in her expression. Is there any possibility, any chance, any hope? I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 7 years, the woman who'd taught me that love without trust is just elaborate self-deception, and I felt exactly what I'd hoped to feel. Nothing at all. I turned and walked away, Max trotting beside me into whatever came next.